Okay, let us.
Isn't that what your teachers always said too?
My teacher always said.
I want you to should see you.
So, we're just going to get caught up on House bills and make an update for the public on where our House bills are. So we're live. Welcome, everybody. This is the Senate Democratic Caucus, and we're meeting in room 11, AKA House Government Operations. And we're today going to be addressing, as you know, we have gone through crossover. We have received numbers of House bills in all our Senate committees. And this is a good time for both the public and other caucus members to be updated on some of the issues that the House has brought to us through their bills. And I see Senator Campion. What?
Yeah, do you mind if I go first? I have a meeting.
Join us. Come up here so people can see.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Photographers to get a good shot.
Thank you. I want to say hi to the people of Bennington.
In an alphabet soup, we're going to just zoom to the middle and go to education. So Senator Campion, you're going to update us on what House bills have come to Senate Education.
Sure. We're working on a number of their bills, mostly related to miscellaneous education topics. What I wanted to point out, though, is where I think some of the end game conversation and discussion is going to be. I'm about to meet with the chair of finance. I think there are other finance members in this room now. We're looking to the yield bill. We're hoping that is where we will fund some PCB mitigation and assessment, right? We've received a dollar amount of, I believe it's 46 million from the Department of Environmental Conservation. We don't know what it'll actually look like in the long run, but that's their guess. We also have a teacher shortage that we're dealing with, and the NEA and the Agency of Education have been working with us to find a path forward to address what is already a crisis in the state. We know there are 1,000 openings for teachers already in the fall, and that's likely to rise. And then there are a number of school construction issues related to HVAC systems, et cetera. I would, and the committee will correct me if I'm wrong, I would say those are our biggest line items, if you will, that we're going to be talking with finance about. There are some other smaller things, but those are the biggies. What I want to raise in the caucus is I do think we're going to get to a point in this room or on the floor around making a decision, because I think one of the competing things is universal meals. And I think that is where the House has used the yield bill to send us that work. And our colleagues are going to have to, in the finance committee in particular, I think we'll have to work with all of us to sort of thread that process.
So just to put some context, I believe we're talking about 90 million in one-time money that's in the yield bill.
That's right.
So the challenge is that one-time money is one-time money. So to build something that has an expectation of ongoingness is a challenge, and the universal school meals is, I believe, an ongoing expectation that those will go on.
And I would say also, I mean, all of the dollars, I mean, we're working with joint fiscal a little bit, and I do, as I mentioned, have a meeting with the chair of finance. Things related to PCBs are also going to be ongoing. I mean, teacher shortage stuff, other construction things can be done within the next year, but certainly PCBs is going to be an ongoing issue. We know it's serious. We know we don't like the idea, no one here in this room does, I think no one in the state does, the idea of young kids sitting in schools being exposed to toxic chemicals. So that's something that we're working on, but I look to Perch, Chip, who else is here? I think that's
Cheryl Hooker.
Anything else?
She hooked.
Oh, and of course, Senator
Very
Lawrence.
well represented.
Anybody want to add anything?
You've done a great job, Senator.
Good work.
So that's where we're at.
And the
Going to you and
Right.
Yeah.
Ray and me, we're gonna make the decision. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And Pearson has an opinion or two.
We're also discussing Act 46 and
Sure, we are doing some other things without a doubt. Thank you. And we are hoping to find a path forward for some school districts that are looking to withdraw from their districts. And that'll be a tricky thing to work out, but I'm hoping that we might have a path forward in the coming days. But this is really just to whet your appetite. I'll come back.
Good, we like our appetite.
Yeah.
Great. So on that note,
Right.
speaking of appetite whetted, and we will chat on the workforce development bill on the teacher.
Sure, and I'll just add H703, we are starting to go through, making our way bit by bit.
Terrific. So, we have Chair of Judiciary. Would you like to give us an update on your House bills? And then we'll go to healthcare, and I see appropriations.
Oh.
Senator Sears.
Thank you. I might forget a few, so I stand to be corrected by
But you
our
happily have
able
support.
vice chair. But we've had a number of House bills come over. And we've dealt with most of them. Perhaps the most important one is the ceiling bill that is on the calendar for today. But we're currently working through several bills that we thought were simple little bills that are not simple little bills. One of them is covenants and deeds that are based upon racial or religious backgrounds. And there's a lot of those in Vermont. We don't know how many, but now many in minority populations are concerned about the House passed bill, that it tries to erase the past. And we heard a lot today about that. So I don't know the future of that bill at this point. They're all null and void anyway because of Supreme Court rulings. But as some of you may know, Justice Rehnquist owned property in Vermont that had one of those racially restrictive covenants. The other bill of note is the bill on criminal and juvenile justice statistics. And it sets up a commission to look into that. Our concern is we constantly just look at the focus on the racial and statistics in the criminal justice and juvenile justice system takes away from a focus in the education system, a focus in the economic development system, other places where folks have been marginalized and discriminated against. And sometimes that's the cause of the criminal activity that they sometimes find themselves in. So we think it should be much broader than just the criminal justice system. And the bill seems to suggest that. It came over from the House, but then there's nothing in it about that. It suggests it in the opening statement that it should be, that should look at all state government, but then it just focuses on that one. Then we have a bill on forfeiture that was supposed to be a simple little bill on civil forfeiture that required about, it's completely being rewritten. And that's civil forfeiture in basically in drug crimes, not, you wouldn't have them in most crimes. And usually the feds do the forfeiture, but this would make it so that it'd be easier for the state to participate in it rather than having the feds in certain drug cases where they have either a house that was bought with drug money or cars or actual cash. I might have missed one, but I think those are the basic ones that are left.
There was that little one.
Oh, yeah, we did it simple today. That has to do with taking into consideration minor children of people during sentencing. But interestingly enough, it's already in the law. But it does give it a firmer place and will be taken into consideration, the impact on minor children. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
S104, the the veto override, and then I think GovOps did a bill that at the beginning of the year to try to go, this is the information about juveniles arrested, but whether they could be released prior to,
Yeah, the government ops committee did that.
we know it's like that bill.
We already passed it.
Right, it's just in the House. I just didn't know. If
Senator,
Well, Jeanette isn't here, I don't.
You want to mention 505?
Huh?
The drug classification bill?
oh, yeah, I forgot about 505. We're not, there's a number of drug crimes that we're looking at. The House has done a reclassification of some crimes, and we, given that there's over 900 crimes, we don't think we should reclassify in a piecemeal basis, but rather do it all together. But in the drug reclassification bill, there is some sections, one section which does away with the penalties for crack. It just has one for cocaine because, as we all know, that's, the minorities generally are convicted of crack cocaine. And there shouldn't be stronger penalties for either one. They should be treated the same.
And
And there's a couple of other good changes that we're making in that bill.
there's a spot right up here, Senator Pearson. So, thank you. So and expungement being sort of that's on the floor now, and
It's on the floor now, but it doesn't. Here's the problem that,
you want to explain what the expungement bill does, because we haven't actually talked about it.
well, I could start by saying what it doesn't do. It covers most misdemeanors except, and then they're listed. It covers no felonies except, and they're listed in the bill.
But this seals records.
No, our bill, our amendment will only do expungement of those records and adds to the list of crimes. For example, one crime that's frequently pled down from a DUI is careless and negligent operation. And this would allow that to be expunged. But basically no crimes of violence are expunged, but we didn't do the sealing portion. Partly because we got into a debate between the Attorney General, who wanted to keep expungement, and the administration who wanted sealing. And we came up with we said, well, we could do the same as the juvenile sealing and make the effect of sealing. But when they said they had agreed to that, then they said, well, we didn't realize that we wouldn't have access to the records without a court order. And law enforcement basically wants access to court records for at least a decade after the record is sealed. And that's not something that a majority of the Senate Judiciary Committee could agree with. So the bill in front of you only continues the current process of expunging limited numbers of crimes. What you have to understand is, I believe it's 3 years and 7 years. 7 years for felonies, 3 years after you've completed all the requirements of the sentence for misdemeanors, and 7 years for felonies after you've completed all the requirements. In other words, served your term, you paid off all your fines, surcharges, everything's been taken care of. Then you're eligible for expungement, but you still have to go through the state's attorney and the court who can say no, unless it's something that is no longer a crime, like possession of marijuana. We make clear that that's an automatic expungement in the bill.
Right, thank you.
I think that pretty much covers the bill. Senator Benning's reporting it, but
Yes, I gather.
I suspect it may not. We'll see what the House wants to do with it.
So we have, I think we're going to go to health and welfare and then let Jane finish eating and maybe do economic development and then approach. Thanks. And we have natural resources. Aha, there he is. So let's try and we'll go Ginny, Senator Lyons, Senator Sorokin, Senator Bray, and then Senator Kitchell. How about that?
All right, thank you, Senator Clarkson. We've already passed a number of bills out, and because they deal with appropriations are now in the Appropriations Committee for consideration. I'm just going to list those bills, and then if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. But we passed a bill out relating to the Office of Child and Family
So these are
Advocate.
all House bills that you've got.
Pardon me?
These are all House bills you've got.
All House bills, and they are now, this bill has now gone to appropriations. Then also a bill for health insurance coverage of hearing aids, which expands hearing aid coverage to our large group market and also our small group market, allowing for an individual to have coverage of hearing aids, one for each ear.
Good.
For over a 3-year period, and then as medically necessary. So that's a really important bill. I know that Finance Committee had worked on it in the past. We've worked on it in the past, and we're happy to see it finally going over the finish line. Then we also have a bill, miscellaneous changes to the Reach Up program that Finance is also looking at. And this has been passed out of our committee. Then another bill on telehealth licensure that is a fairly comprehensive bill on how telehealth will be regulated for out-of-state folks providing medical care for folks in state, in our state. So that bill is also important. It is in, I believe, in approps. Then we passed a bill out relating to the opioid settlement that's coming to the state for millions of dollars over the next several years, and how that money will offer advice in that bill from an advisory committee of how that money would be expended for opioid prevention, intervention, treatment going
Is it
forward.
the Oxycontin settlement?
This is the pharmaceutical settlement.
Right.
This is an important bill. And I personally have been working on this one since last summer, but the committee in the House worked on it with us. So it was a cooperative effort between the administration, House and Senate folks, and now the bill is in appropriation, since it does deal with money going out from the state, various places. And then finally, a bill on relating to a system of care for individuals with developmental disabilities. So that all of those bills are now either being considered in finance or in appropriations. Then we're currently working on some bills that I think are pretty important to us. Beside the usual housekeeping bills that we see from the Department of Health and from the Department of Vermont Health Access. So there are 2 bills in those areas. But then we also have a bill related to the pharmacy benefit management system. So Pharmacy Benefit Manager is an organization that acts as a go-between between the to save money between the pharmaceutical industry and, for example, Viva, an agency to save money for the purchase of pharmaceutical drugs. But these organizations have created, in the eyes of some, a lack of transparency in how the benefits are distributed or accessed. So this bill really expands transparency within this system. We're going to finish our work on that bill this week and hopefully pass it out. We've had some input from Department of Financial Regulation and others to improve the way that our PBMs work in the state. We also have a little bill on medical debt. We know how disturbing it is when someone is overwhelmed with medical debt, and the collection of medical debt can then become problematic. So as we hear from patients, who have huge debt and have to pay down their resources. One of the things that is happening in other parts of the country is that the medical debt is being sold to large organizations. And so we want to prevent some of the problems that are associated with that. So some of these larger corporations become very aggressive around collection with patients. So what we're doing, what the bottom line in this bill is to disallow for the sale of medical debt to these large organizations and to keep that collection system local. We know our hospitals have excellent financial support services for patients. So we're trying to keep those in place and the local collection process in place. So that's another bill that we'll try to finish our work on this week. And then let me just see if there's anything else. Oh, we also have a bill that came to us from the House on improving the opioid response. So looking at various elements within our community system of care for opioid response, and that includes how to support people who have an addiction. So there's no money in that bill. So that one will go to appropriations. So most of the bills that I think I've listed for you that we're currently working on will probably have a direct path to the floor of the Senate. They may take a little pathway to approach or finance. It's the end of the time for our committee. The last comment I will make is that we're working on H703, the Workforce Investment Bill. And there's a significant amount in that bill that relates to healthcare workforce. We just started looking at that today, and we will do our best to make recommendations as quickly as possible. But we all know that bill is huge.
$13.3 million in your area alone.
We are looking at it. Is it 13.3? I thought it was 12.9, but we'll.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Great. So that's a perfect segue to Senator Sirotkin to talk about what economic development got from the House.
Okay. So in economic development, we have two big bills left. One is 703, which Ginny just talked about, and we're looking for feedback from all of you in terms of workforce development. I think there's something like $26 million in workforce development. It really is like a mini appropriations bill. It's got 31 different appropriations ranging from $50,000 to $3 million. And we've taken a lot of testimony, but obviously the substantive committees may have thoughts they would share with us. It was our hope to get it out on Friday. I just asked Brian Campion in the hall. He said, could he have till Friday morning to get us his recommendations? And I said early Friday morning. So we'll see. The other bill we have is 730, which is the alcohol bill. It sounded like it was coming up. It was going to be a big omnibus bill, but really it deals with primarily ready to drink, low alcohol cocktails. That, you know, like you could buy a Seagram's margarita drink or something. I guess Seagram's wouldn't be margarita, but so they want to be able to sell those in grocery stores and convenience stores as opposed to liquor stores, because their alcohol content is not too dissimilar to beers and wines. That's the main thing there. We're looking, we're taking testimony today, and I haven't gotten green light from my committee yet, but we're thinking about doing the sports betting bill on that bill, implementing an act this year as opposed to just doing a study. We have about 5 other bills that are all relatively narrow in focus. We've taken testimony on all of them. I don't think there's any controversy on them.
They're kind of interesting. You might mention the composting option for. Oh, great. Because they're pretty interesting.
H74 deals with self-storage businesses, sort of updates their laws to come in line with the 21st century and being able to connect with people over the internet and telling people what their rights are vis-a-vis abandoned property in self-storage units. H244 is what Senator Clarkson just talked about. It's a new wave of burial beyond normal burial and cremation. And now essentially there are machines that sounds kind of gross, but is sort of composting machines that is happening in
Ag
Europe and
diversification.
here.
Yeah.
It actually sounds like the testimony was actually pretty good on it.
Yep.
The H320, we passed a law a couple of years ago. It was called the Do Not Darken My Door provision, which when you sign, if you have a harassment complaint and you reach a settlement, frequently the settlement has in it a provision that says, do not darken my door. Don't ever come and ask me for a job again. And we made that provision illegal. And what this bill will do will extend that do not darken illegality of do not darken my door provisions to all other discrimination claims we have in our law, be they race, religion, sex, whatever. That first bill from a few years ago was just on sexual harassment. 599 is just adjusting the workers' comp surcharge for the administration of the workers' compensation program. And that's it.
That's a lot.
Michael, sorry, patient in the back here. As we talk about 730 and the alcohol bill, I do want to mention that you.
We have gotten a bunch of requests
Okay.
to add on to the alcohol bill, which we will consider.
Richie Westman has a bunch.
What's that?
We have, there are quite a few.
Yeah, and we will deal with all of them. Just because the House didn't, doesn't mean that we won't.
Okay. So I think given our time, I'm going to shift to Senator Bray and then Senator Kitchell, who's going to be doing the full presentation of the budget on the floor. I mean, we did the presentation earlier, but we're going to be walking through that bill at 4 o'clock for the public who may be wanting to tune in. So Senator Bray.
Sure. So, usually our committee has a relatively modest number of bills. They're more complicated. We've brought out 7 thus far, and we received from the House post crossover 14. So it's a bumper crop of environmental and energy bills, and we're just going to go through them in numerical order. So the ones that we're still working on, the bottle bill, H175. We expect there were some, we found major logistical problems with implementation as passed by the House, and we've had a working group that's coming up with an alternative. H411 just voted today, referred to as the want waste bill, and means when you're out hunting, you kill something, you retrieve it, you use it with, there are a few exceptions related to that, like you wouldn't necessarily have to use a skunk trap in defensive property. Okay, so onward, there's a miscellaneous bill from ANR. There's a revision to the petroleum cleanup fund. We'll do that next week. It's very small and discreet. There's an act relating to the structure of the Natural Resources Board. That's a large and controversial bill. We're still working on it, H492, but do plan to pass that. 500 mercury lamps. We're always chasing down stray toxic substances in different pockets of commerce. That addresses that. 501 relates to food depack. One of the problems with taking food in containers and putting it through a giant machine that macerates all of it is that the packaging inevitably ends up in the food residual stream. Well, we don't want to see microplastics and toxins with them, perhaps PFAS, for instance, which is packaging, then brought to farms and then land applied, because once that's part of the soil, it will never be recovered and it could be prone to pollution. Municipal energy resilience initiatives, that's actually a $35 million bill to help municipalities make the transition to lower energy, cleaner energy. We'll be moving that. There's a bill on HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons, another small niche bill. We'll be moving that. There's a bill there's a national initiative called 30 by 30. It's about preserving 30% of natural spaces by the year 2030. Vermont's already at like 22, 24%. We'll be working on that. There is, and one last one, a UVA. So right now, the point of use value is that you need to be managing your farm or forest land, quote unquote, for production. And this bill says that when there's a small category, maybe up to 9% of Vermont, mature reserve forest land. So you're valuing it not because it's going to be the source of timber, but because it's a unique resource. And it's like our closest thing to ancient forests. That's not been allowed for under use value. And we're looking at a way to, you would still have most of your land there would still, the vast majority of land would be all at quote unquote productive use, but this would allow for special reserve forest land to be set aside and then enjoy the UVA tax reduction. That makes it affordable to hold a large tract of valuable forest land.
Not unlike what we did several years ago on ecologically sensitive areas.
Right, this builds on that earlier work on ecologically sensitive.
Thank you, Senator Ray. And I know we're running out of time, and I know we need to chat about finance, but I think, Jane, you want to talk just briefly about the budget, or you think we have?
No, I have nothing more to say about the budget. I want to invite everybody at 1 o'clock to come into Senate Appropriations, where we will have a triple chocolate cake with raspberries.
Whoa.
And so that's my only announcement. Needless to say, anybody's bill that carries money is all converging on us. So we've got a lot of bills that we'd like to just crash after the budget, but
Yeah, not able to.
so we're taking up the deputy sheriff's retirement bill, the T bill, and a third one today.
Thank you.
What the third one is, but I'm sure it's important.
And
They're all important.
And Chris, Senator Ray?
Do you have a schedule yet?
Andy,
Oh, that's the one today.
Transportation.
Thank you. How could I forget it? It's today.
So we have members here from finance and from transportation. Just quick updates on transportation and then finance.
T-bill will take up this week and it'll be exciting.
Thank you, Jane.
And I already gave you the
Yeah,
little bit of money we moved around.
and what you got from the house, you got other things from the house.
So come and get cake. This
Okay,
week.
great, we will.
Yeah, it's all in the T-bill and
Okay.
the miscellaneous T.
Okay, no other bills? Go. Well, that's easy.
That's the excitement of transportation committee.
So stimulating.
Just one big bill.
Finance, you've got so much going on.
Finance,
There, he's the vice chair.
the chair is, we're stuck between appropriations committee suggesting we raise some revenue and a worry that during all the federal money around, we shouldn't be raising taxes. And we've been 3 or 4 months now in this legislature, and we have not gotten a listen from Tom Cavett, who gives us the long haul advice. And the chair has him scheduled to come in and give us what's going on nationally, so we don't. We're dealing with the administration that wants to give tax cuts, and at the same time is saying, don't raise money, don't raise money, don't raise money. Trying to thread a needle through that to not have the next legislature get stuck when the federal money begins to dry up and we're underextended. So
So more to follow.
more to follow.
So I think with that, I mean, Senator Pearson, anybody else have anything to add for today? Because I think we should probably wrap up and go and get some chocolate cake and celebrate the budget passing. We're about to pass. So thank you, public. Thank you, caucus. More to follow. Next week, we'll have a finance